So if you watched my last track video, you know my bumper has seen better days. Yeah. It also wasn't hanging on straight to begin with, so today I'm gonna look at everything that's damaged and see what I can replace.
The bumper's only hanging on by a few clips and the tow hook, so it's pretty easy to get the cover off. Underneath that, you can see the bumper itself is pretty bent. I went off track a few times at Button Willow, so there's plenty of dust and dirt still to clear out. The bumper isn't the only thing that's damaged, but it'll be a good start, and luckily I found myself a donor. If you're looking to do a replacement like this, make yourself a list of what's bent and go down to your local junkyard and find yourself all the parts you need.
So I'm not gonna be able to replace everything that's busted right now, but stuff like this, you can see how this brace has been kind of pushed back a little bit. It doesn't create that much of an issue, but it means that the bumper sits a little weird, which means all the clips are a little weaker, which is kind of one of the reasons that my bumper nearly got ripped off last time I was at Button Willow. So we're gonna replace as much as we can. I got some parts from the junkyard, and we'll see how close we get to having an aligned bumper fender headlight combination again.
Replacing a bumper is actually pretty straightforward. There's only about 8 bolts holding on the main bumper itself, and there might be some random bracketry as well that you need to take off. Just make sure that all your cables are clear, and then you can get to pulling off the bumper. Bolts might be stubborn, especially on bent parts, so it's good to have some penetrating fluid around.
You know, many people think of the plastic piece as the bumper. That's technically not, that's the bumper cover. This is your actual bumper. So we can see that it's nowhere near as bent as the other one, or I should say, it's not bent at all. This car was in a rear end collision, not a front end collision. Lots of cars that you find at junkyards are in front end collisions, so this is kind of hard to find. But I managed it. This is off a 2009 instead of a 2007. There's some slight differences, but it looks like everything's gonna line up. I also got this guy. This is part of the radiator support. I'm hoping I don't have to use it. For one, it is a little crunched on the bottom there. So I would just use the sides, but using the sides means a lot more dismantling, and I'm hoping I can still reuse the sides that I have because they have the oil cooler drilled in and like a couple modifications, and I don't want to have to redo all those modifications. But if I need them, I got extras. If you're going to the junkyard to grab parts, it's always good to grab parts kind of a little deeper than you think you're going to need, just in case, because you're not always 100% sure exactly what's damaged unless you took it all apart beforehand. Personally, I prefer taking it apart for the first time at the junkyard, because if I get stuck, it's not my car. If I get stuck taking apart this, it is my car. And now that I'm taking apart this, I've already done it once, so I already know a little bit about how it works. So, remember how I said doing this once before means it'll be easier to do because you know what you're doing? Turns out these nuts that were on the back weren't holding everything in. They were welded onto the metal because they were what the other bolts came out of. So, yeah, I broke one. To be fair, I took that bumper off like a couple months ago, and I may have forgotten how I did it.
When you're taking off bent parts, remember that, well, they're bent, so they're probably not going to come off the way they were designed to, and you might have to force them. Here you can really see just how bent that bumper was. It was hard to tell when it was on the car, but this makes it evident.
So apart from the bumper, everything is looking fine except for these little radiator braces right here. But here's the thing: is the '09 car didn't have those, and they don't look like they're doing much. So I'm just gonna pull these off and put the bumper on without them.
So now it's all just about putting the new bumper on and lining everything up. If it's not lining up, it might mean that something else is bent, but luckily these have adjustable slots for the bolts up front, so we just loosened that and everything went together perfectly. So now that the bumper's been replaced, the cover can go back on, and it goes on a lot easier than it did before. There's just one problem.
So I feel like I could have known this was going to be a problem. The bumper now lines up better than it has in a while, but it starts to reveal all the other things that are misaligned. When something gets hit in a crash, it's not going to just push one thing, it might push everything a little bit. So just replacing one part, actually, you'd think you'd align everything, but you're actually misaligning it with all your bent parts. So we're just gonna have to go deeper and see if we can fix fenders and things like that, which means I'm gonna have to make another video. I'll get this locked down so that it's at least fine to go to track, but now after the tape that I had to do as the quick fix at Button Willow and the gap that is coming from what I'm assuming is the fender being a little bent, we got some replacing to do. Let's do it.